I remember the exact moment my husband, Mark, dropped the bombshell. We were having dinner, a quiet Tuesday night, just like any other. The familiar clinking of silverware against plates, the soft hum of the refrigerator, the usual comfortable silence that had settled between us over years of marriage. He looked across the table at me, not nervous, not really, just matter of fact. His eyes held a strange kind of calm, a detached certainty that immediately put me on edge, even before he spoke. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice even, almost casual, "about an open marriage." My fork, laden with a bite of pasta, stopped halfway to my mouth. It hung there, suspended in the air, a small, insignificant thing in the sudden vast stillness that enveloped our kitchen. The hum of the fridge seemed to fade. The clinking of plates vanished. Everything felt still, frozen in that one unnerving moment. It was as if the world had paused, waiting for my reaction, waiting for something to break. I didn't react much at first, not visibly anyway. My face remained impassive, a blank canvas masking the sudden jolt that had just gone through me. I just listened. Mark continued, explaining his thoughts, his reasons. He spoke about feeling restricted, about how he believed an open marriage would make us both happier, more fulfilled. He used words like freedom and modern relationships, phrases that sounded progressive but felt hollow coming from him in that context. He talked about personal growth, about exploring new connections without threatening the foundation of our marriage. He laid it all out, a neat, logical argument, as if discussing a business proposal rather than the intimate fabric of our shared life. But even as he spoke, detailing his vision for our future, I could hear what he wasn't saying, the unspoken desires and dissatisfactions that lay beneath his carefully chosen words. It wasn't just about freedom. It was about his freedom. It wasn't just about growth. It was about his growth. I just nodded, a small, almost imperceptible movement, and asked a few calm questions. I wanted to understand his point of view, to grasp the full scope of what he was suggesting, even as a cold wave washed over me. It felt like being submerged in icy water, a shock that left me breathless but oddly clear-headed. I went to bed that night feeling numb, a strange emptiness where my emotions should have been. The shock had worn off, replaced by a dull ache, a quiet thrum beneath my skin. But also, strangely, a little curious. A tiny spark of curiosity flickered in the darkness of my thoughts, wondering what this abrupt shift could mean for me, for my own life, separate from his. It was a terrifying thought, but also, surprisingly, a little bit liberating. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. The next few days were quiet, filled with a new kind of silence. It wasn't the comfortable quiet we'd known before. This was a silence heavy with unspoken words, with the weight of Mark's proposal hanging in the air between us. I thought about what Mark had said, turning his words over and over in my mind, examining them from every angle. I thought about our life, our routine, the predictable rhythm we had fallen into. I thought about what I wanted, a question I hadn't truly asked myself in a long time. I wasn't angry, not really. Anger felt too hot, too immediate for the slow, creeping realization that was settling in. More like thoughtful. A deep, quiet thoughtfulness that bordered on introspection. We talked about it again a few times over the next week. Each conversation was like chipping away at a block of ice, slowly revealing the form beneath. He kept pushing, gently, but persistently. His arguments remained consistent, his desire for this new arrangement unwavering. He spoke of trust, of honesty, of strengthening our bond by allowing individual exploration. He painted a picture of a more evolved relationship, one free from conventional constraints. I listened, absorbing every word, every nuance of his expression. I watched him, searching for doubt, for hesitation, but there was none. He truly believed this was the path to a better future for us. Finally, after days of internal debate, of weighing the pros and cons, of confronting my own fears and desires, I looked at him across the kitchen table one evening. The setting was so ordinary, so mundane, for such an extraordinary decision. I took a deep breath, the decision solidifying within me. "Okay, Mark," I said. my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil I had experienced. "Let's do it." He looked surprised. His eyes widened slightly, a flicker of disbelief crossing his face, as if he hadn't truly expected me to agree so easily, so calmly. He probably anticipated a fight, tears, a long, drawn-out negotiation. Instead, he got quiet acceptance. Then, a slow smile spread across his face, a big, relieved smile that reached his eyes. It was a smile of triumph, of having gotten exactly what he wanted. I just smiled back, a small, knowing smile that he probably misinterpreted entirely. He thought he had won. But I knew deep down that something entirely different was about to begin. Mark wasted no time. The ink on our unspoken agreement was barely dry before he was out almost immediately, embracing his newfound freedom with an almost childlike enthusiasm. He started going on dates, coming home late, sometimes with a faint scent of unfamiliar perfume clinging to his clothes. He'd tell me about them, sometimes with a little too much detail, recounting conversations and experiences that felt both intimate and detached. He seemed to genuinely believe that sharing these stories was part of our open communication, a way to uphold the transparency we had supposedly agreed upon. I listened, always calm, always asking the right questions, playing my part in this new arrangement. I inquired about his evenings, about the people he met, maintaining a placid demeanor that belied the complex thoughts swirling inside me. Meanwhile, I started my own journey, quietly and deliberately. My path was different from his, not focused on immediate external connections, but on internal rediscovery. I joined a new gym, signing up for classes I'd always wanted to try but never made time for. The physical exertion was a welcome release, a way to channel the restless energy that had built up within me. I started taking a pottery class, finding a meditative peace in the feel of clay in my hands, shaping something new and beautiful from formless material. It was a tangible creation, unlike the shifting, uncertain landscape of my marriage. I reconnected with old friends, women whom I had drifted away from over the years, lost in the busy currents of married life. We met for coffee, for walks, for long, honest conversations, and their company felt like a breath of fresh air. I wasn't actively looking for dates right away. That wasn't my immediate priority. My focus was on myself, on reclaiming pieces of my identity that had become subsumed in our shared life. I wanted to feel like me again, separate from him, separate from the roles I had played for so long. There was a quiet strength building inside me, a sense of self-sufficiency that felt both unfamiliar and exhilarating. Then he started talking about Sarah. Her name began to pepper his conversations more frequently, her presence growing in significance. She was different, he said, intellectually stimulating. He used those words often, as if to justify the increasing depth of his connection with her. The way he spoke about her, the subtle changes in his tone, the way his eyes would light up a little more when her name came up. I knew it was more than just a casual encounter. This was becoming something serious for him, something that transcended the initial boundaries of our open agreement. I saw them together once, purely by chance, at a coffee shop near my pottery class. I was walking by, lost in my own thoughts, when I noticed them through the window. They were sitting close, heads bent together, engrossed in conversation. She was pretty, with a confident air about her, a bright, engaging smile. She looked at him in a way that made it clear she was serious about him, her gaze lingering, full of genuine interest. It wasn't a casual glance. It was a deep, absorbed attention. I felt a pang, not of jealousy, not in the way I would have before. It was something else. It was like a confirmation of what I already knew, a visual representation of the shift that was happening in our lives. It was the physical manifestation of the space that had opened between us, a space he was now filling with someone else. And in that moment, seeing them, I understood with absolute clarity that this was not just about freedom for him, it was about distance from me. While Mark was busy with Sarah, navigating the complexities of his new relationship, I was busy with myself. My world was expanding, not shrinking. I started going out more, not on dates necessarily, but engaging with the world in ways I hadn't in years. My pottery class became a sanctuary, a place where creativity flowed freely and without judgment. The gym was more than just exercise. It was a testament to my growing physical and mental strength. I met new people through these activities, individuals who shared my interests, who saw me not as Mark's wife, but as me. I wasn't looking for revenge, not in the slightest. That felt too small, too petty, for the grander transformation I was undergoing. Instead, I was looking for connection, for genuine interest, for conversations that went beyond the superficial. I started feeling good about myself again, a quiet confidence blooming inside me. It wasn't loud or boastful, but a deep-seated sense of self-worth. I realized I didn't need Mark to define me, to validate my existence. I was becoming someone new, someone stronger, someone who was capable of standing entirely on her own. This woman was more vibrant, more self-assured than the one who had numbly agreed to an open marriage months ago. The subtle shift in my demeanor, the way I carried myself, the sparkle in my eyes. These were all reflections of the internal work I was doing. My focus had turned inwards, cultivating a garden within myself that had been left untended for too long. Then, one evening, Mark came home, looking visibly stressed. The easy confidence he had exuded months ago had vanished, replaced by a furrowed brow and a weary slump to his shoulders. He walked into the kitchen where I was making tea, and the air around him felt heavy with unspoken worries. He started talking about Sarah, but this time his words weren't filled with excitement or intellectual admiration. They were tinged with frustration and confusion. He spoke of how complicated things were getting, how Sarah had expectations he hadn't anticipated, how the lines were blurring in ways he hadn't wanted. The freedom he had chased seemed to have entangled him instead. He said he missed our normal, the predictable comfort of our shared life, the ease of our routine. He started hinting that maybe this open marriage thing wasn't working for him anymore, that perhaps it had been a mistake. I just listened, calm as ever, my expression neutral. I watched him pace, listened to his complaints, his regrets. There was no triumph in my heart, no desire to say, "I told you so." Just a quiet observation of the consequences of his choices. When he finally finished, his voice trailing off into a frustrated sigh, I looked at him. My gaze was steady, unwavering. I took a slow breath, the decision already formed and firm in my mind. "Mark," I said, my voice very quiet, but clear and resolute. "I think you're right. It's not working. For me either." He looked utterly confused, his stressed features twisting into a question mark. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice laced with a sudden dawning fear. "Not working for you either, but you seemed fine with everything." I took another deep breath, preparing to deliver the final blow to the illusion he had built. "I mean, I'm done," I stated plainly, leaving no room for misinterpretation. "Not just with the open marriage, Mark. I'm done with our marriage." His face fell, the color draining from it. The fear in his eyes intensified, turning to panic. He started to argue, to plead, his words tumbling out in a desperate rush. He said he'd made a mistake, that he loved me, that we could fix this, go back to how things were. He promised to end things with Sarah, to recommit to us, to do whatever it took. But I was firm, unyielding. The time for those promises had passed. I told him he wanted freedom, and he got it. He had pursued it, embraced it, and in doing so, he had inadvertently given me the space to find my own. Now, I wanted mine, truly and completely. It was hard, of course. Ending a marriage, even one that had frayed at the edges, is never easy. But standing there, in that moment, making that decision, I felt a kind of peace I hadn't felt in a very long time. It wasn't the peace of resignation, but the peace of liberation. I wasn't angry or bitter. Those emotions had dissipated, replaced by a quiet strength. I was just free. I had given him what he wanted, and in doing so, I had found what I needed. I walked away from that marriage not broken, not shattered, but whole. I was ready for whatever came next, ready to build a life defined solely by my own choices, my own desires. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, it felt entirely mine.